Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Senior Living Solutions. Thank you for joining us today. We specialize in helping families find ways to pay for senior living. The cost of a senior living community or private duty home care is certainly not cheap, so our primary objective is to help the family find solutions and ways to pay for this type of care. Today we're going to be specifically focusing on the non-service connected veteran pension, more commonly referred to as aid and attendance. It's nothing new. This benefit was created by the VA in 1952, specifically designed to help wartime veterans and their spouses pay for senior living care or private care in their home. I believe that what separates us from other organizations is credibility. Over 17 years of helping veteran families qualify and obtain this benefit, we have been lucky enough to have put together a phenomenal team of experts who assist our veteran families through this complicated process. We work closely with outstanding teams of VA accredited attorneys, and we have been fortunate enough to have endured the test of time. We have 17 years now of experience, and our team has participated in over 250 million in paid out claims to veteran families, so we are very proud of that. The VA, as you know, does not make it easy for veteran families to obtain this benefit. 81% of veteran families who apply directly with the VA end up waiting a year or longer and end up being declined for one reason or another. Everyone in our organization is either a veteran or a family member of a veteran, so we're very passionate about helping our veteran families qualify and obtaining this benefit that they've earned. If there are any veterans on the call today, we'd like to thank you for your service to our country. For any spouses or family members, we'd like to thank you for your sacrifices as well. We hope this presentation brings some awareness to this benefit. We hope to explain this benefit and process in a way that you have not seen before. And we want to show you why we feel that we are the organization for you. It's never been more necessary for a veteran family to work closely with an experienced team than it is today, and we feel that we bring a lot of value to the table by being able to qualify a veteran family immediately and help them obtain this benefit in a timely manner. So let's get started. The Veterans Non-Service Connected Pension is a federal program that can offer wartime veterans and their spouses a monthly pension payment from the Department of Veterans Affairs. The term survivor's pension is used to describe the same benefit, but for the surviving spouse of a wartime veteran. The term aid and attendance is actually used to describe the maximum amount of benefit the claimant can receive. There are 3 levels to the veteran pension, aid and attendance being the highest amount. We focus on helping our families obtain the aid and attendance benefit, the highest amount of veteran pension. So from this point on, we will be referring to it as aid and attendance. Again, it was established in 1952, specifically designed to help wartime veterans and their spouses pay for their long-term care needs, such as assisted living or home health care. A lot of misconceptions come to play when we're talking about the aid and attendance benefit. One of them is that you had to have been a disabled veteran in order to receive aid and attendance. That's not true. Veterans and spouses over the age of 65 who require the assistance of another person with routine activities of daily living are the ones eligible for this benefit. The maximum annual pension rate for 2025, 2 married veterans, when you have 2 married wartime veterans, their maximum annual pension rate is $44,866 per year, or $3,740 per month, aid and attendance. For a married veteran who's married to a non-veteran, the monthly amount is $2,795, which comes out to $33,540 per year. For a single veteran with no dependents, $2,358 per month, or $28,296 per year. And when we have a situation where we have a healthy veteran, but his or her spouse is the one that needs the care, the benefit is $1,863 per month, or $22,356 per year. And of course, for the surviving spouse of a wartime veteran, the benefit amount is $1,515 per month, or $18,180 per year. And again, all of these benefits are tax-free, and you can see that they are quite substantial and life-changing in many cases. In order for the veteran or the spouse to receive that pension, the VA has 3 areas of qualification. The first area of qualification is wartime service. The veteran must have served at least 90 consecutive days of active duty, with one of those days being during a period of war. The veteran must have received a discharge other than dishonorable, and the veteran did not have to be in combat. It could have been stationed anywhere in the world, and the veteran did not have to be wounded or develop any type of illness or disability from his or her wartime service. Again, 90 consecutive days of active duty, one of those days being during a period of war, and that makes them eligible from a wartime service standpoint. The surviving spouse, very important, must have been married to the veteran at the time of passing, and the surviving spouse must have never remarried. Unfortunately, if a divorce occurs, then the divorce disqualifies the surviving spouse of the wartime veteran, had to have been married to the veteran at the time of passing, and must have never remarried. Here are the wartime dates. I want to bring your attention to Vietnam in country. Vietnam in country from February 1st, 1955 until August 4th, 1964. That 9-year gap right there is the only time the veteran must have been in country in Vietnam, boots on the ground, in order to qualify for this benefit. Vietnam they could have been stationed anywhere in the world. In any of these other conflicts and wars, they could have been stationed anywhere in the world. But Vietnam in country is actually considered a peacetime right here. So unless they were actually in Vietnam during this time, they would not be eligible for the aid and attendance benefit. And the Vietnam War kicks off August 5th, 1964 and goes out through May 7th, 1975, at which point they could have been stationed anywhere in the world. So 90 consecutive days of active duty, one of those days had to have been during a period of war. The only time they had to have been stationed in country is during this 9-year period from 1955 to 1964. The second area of qualification is we have to show the VA that the veteran or the spouse is receiving and paying for ADL assistance. ADL stands for Activities of Daily Living. And in order to qualify for aid and attendance, they need to be receiving assistance with at least 2 of the following activities of daily living. Now in 2018, the VA opened up the activities of daily living to some additional activities of daily living, but with our families, we only work off these activities of daily living that you see in white. We want to make sure that our veteran families are receiving and paying for assistance that they would receive in an assisted living type environment. Actual physical bathing, showering, personal hygiene, dressing, mental therapy, toileting, ambulation, physical therapy, nursing services. We always make sure that our veteran families are receiving assistance with at least 2 of these. They don't necessarily have to be being bathed, but maybe there's someone in the other room who provides standby bathing assistance in case the veteran or spouse falls. Maybe they lay out some clothes for dressing assistance, tie some shoes, cut some fingernails and toenails for personal hygiene. We always want to make sure that they're receiving and paying for 2 of these activities of daily living. And then we want to build the case and add the other additional activities, as they happen and as they're being provided for the veteran or the spouse. But we want 2 of these activities of daily living for sure. We want to be able to use the cost of the care as a medical deduction against the claimant's income, which is very important, because 81% of families that go directly to the VA end up with a decline, and usually it's because of having too much income because they don't know how to convey the proper message to the VA and utilize the cost of care as a medical deduction against the income. The cost of this care must be documented by the caregiver's completion of the VA's care provider report. It's very important that the caregivers complete the proper forms that the VA requires in order to really force the VA to use the cost of that care as a medical deduction against the income, which is extremely important. The ADL care must be prescribed properly by the claimant's doctor. We want to make sure that, again, we're able to use the cost of care as a medical deduction, which is extremely important because if you don't take that medical deduction, they get declined for having too much income. So having the doctor prescribe the care properly is essential. VA Form 21-2680 is a 4-page doctor report that somewhere in there the doctor needs to prescribe the care and indicate that the veteran or the spouse is receiving the proper care that the VA is looking for. This care can be provided by an in-home health care organization. The VA doesn't necessarily care where they live. They just want to see that someone's providing the assistance and that the veteran or spouse is paying for that assistance. It could be provided by a family member, a son, a daughter, a niece, a nephew, a cousin, a friend, a neighbor. The only person that cannot provide the care and have it counted is the spouse. All right, so it has to be a friend, a family member, an in-home healthcare organization, adult daycare program, an independent living community, an assisted living community, a memory care community, and even a nursing home community. Often when they go on and move, have to be forced into living into a nursing home, Medicaid will come into play at that time. That's another issue. But for the most part, any senior living scenario, we can help that veteran or spouse become qualified, whether they're paying a family member, which often they're not. A lot of times the family members are already providing care, but they're not being paid for it. So it's very important to make sure that they are paying that family member for care, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The third area of qualification is based on income and assets. We're first going to talk about just their fixed monthly income, Social Security, pension that they may receive, any type of income received from an investment or retirement account like an IRA, any type of pension they receive from their employment, and of course Social Security. Any income from their spouse is counted, so it's household income that's reported for VA purposes. We're going to take an example here from an income standpoint. The maximum annual pension rate, the MAPR, is the maximum amount of benefit the veteran or spouse can receive. And we're going to use a single veteran as the example here. The single veteran, the maximum annual pension rate is $28,296 per year, which comes out to $2,358 per month. We're going to talk mostly about this from a monthly perspective because the VA pays it monthly, and a lot of people understand their monthly income a little bit better than their annual income. So in order for the veteran, or in this case, to qualify from an income standpoint, the VA's website shows that they have to have less than $2,358 per month, and we're talking again a single veteran with no dependents, must have monthly income less than $2,358 per month in order to qualify, okay? And the best way to illustrate this is to show you an example. So we're going to use Bob. Bob's a Korean War vet. He's a single veteran with no dependents. His monthly pension amount is $2,358 per month. Bob has to have less than that in order to qualify from an income standpoint, but he receives Social Security every month for $1,900, and he worked at the post office for a long time, and he has a $700 monthly pension that comes in. So Bob's total monthly income is $2,600 per month. Well, Bob and his daughter Mary head over to the local VA after hearing about the aid and attendance benefit, and they ask the local VA representative if they could apply, and the VA representative starts asking Bob and Mary some questions, and this happens all of the time. I've seen it for the last 17 years where they get to the income section and the representative asks Bob what is his monthly income, and Bob states that his monthly income is $2,600 per month. The representative looks in the local handbook and says, Bob, thank you for your service. Have a nice day. You have too much income. You have to be below $2,358 in order to receive the aid and attendance benefit. So Bob and Mary go home, and for the rest of their lives, they think that Bob has too much income for aid and attendance, and that's unfortunate. But Mary, being the loving daughter that she is, gets on the internet and starts doing some research, and she finds out that Bob is allowed to take medical deductions to lower his income, but that for a medical expense to be used as a medical deduction, two things have to happen. First, the expense must be a recurring monthly expense, and it must be greater than 5% of the MAPR, which in this case is $118 per month. So the $2,358, 5% of that is $118 per month. So in order for a medical expense to be used as a medical deduction, it has to be something that recurs monthly every month for the remainder of Bob's life, and it has to be greater than $118 in order for the VA to allow it to be used as a medical deduction. So Mary looks at Bob's bank statements and looks through his finances and sees that Bob's paying Medicare Part B, $175 a month, which is being withheld from his Social Security. It recurs every month, and it's greater than $118. So Mary writes that down, $175. She also sees that Bob is paying $235 a month for his Medicare supplement. It recurs every month, and it's greater than $118. So Mary adds those two up, and she's got $410 of medical expense that she can use as a medical deduction to offset Bob's income and to lower Bob's income. But what she doesn't know is that the VA is going to subtract $118, which is 5% of the MAPR, from the $410, Bob's total medical expense, and give Bob an allowable medical deduction of $292, not $410, $292. So Mary subtracts that $292 from Bob's $2,600 of monthly income, and she gets $2,308. Mary, in her mind, has just achieved the impossible. Bob's IVAP income for VA purposes, Bob's adjusted income or IVAP, is now $2,308. It's lower than the $2,358. So Mary and Bob go back to the local VA. The representative says, you're absolutely right. I apologize. You are allowed to use these medical deductions. They give Mary and Bob the application to get started. Mary and Bob go back to their house. They fill out the application. They take it back to the local VA. And for the next 12 to 15 months, the local VA starts drip mailing on Bob and Mary. We need this form. We need that form. We need the doctor form, the caregiver forms, the fiduciary forms, the authorization forms, the full disclosure forms, this form, that form. And for the next 12 to 15 months, they wait to see if Bob's going to be approved for this benefit. They know he's going to pass the income test because he's only got $2,308 after taking the medical deduction. But what they don't know is that any positive income is subtracted from the benefit amount. The VA is, after Mary and Bob take their deductions, get their income down to 2308. The 2308 is then subtracted from the benefit amount. So you take 2358 minus 2308, which equals $50. So Bob waits 12 to 15 months to find out that his benefit is going to be $50 a month. But in reality, he doesn't even receive that because he's living at home and the necessary medical activities of daily living, the assistance that's required, is not being performed for Bob. So he waits 12 to 15 months to get a big fat decline in the letter in the mail. And that's what happens 81% of the time to families that try to obtain this benefit through the local VA. Any positive income is subtracted from the benefit amount. You have to zero out the income in order to receive the full $23.58. So a couple of months later, Bob and Mary start to see that Bob's health is declining, and Mary starts to go and look at some assisted living communities in their local area. Bob still has the $1,900 of Social Security, the $700 from the post office, for a total monthly income of $2,600. So Mary tries to find an assisted living community that Bob can afford, and the cheapest one she can find was $3,400 a month, and unfortunately Bob just doesn't have enough money, enough income to be able to afford that. But the assisted living community tells Mary about Senior Living Solutions and about the aid and attendance benefit. Well, Mary says, oh, we've already been through that. Last year we tried to, we waited an entire year to get a big fat decline in the letter in the mail. But the director at the assisted living community says, trust me, give Senior Living Solutions a call. They can help you. So we start talking to Mary, and we determine that, yes, Bob does have the Medicare Part B expense and the Medicare supplement expense. But with our experience, we tell Mary, listen, you're already providing assistance for your father. You're already helping him with walking, and you're helping him, get in and out of bed, and you're tying his shoes, and you're managing his medicine, and you're managing his finances, and you're doing a lot of care for your father already. What needs to be done is that he needs to pay you that $2,308, the amount of that's left over after his Medicare and Medicare supplements are being paid. We want to create an additional medical expense, just as if he were living in an assisted living community. The VA doesn't care who provides the assistance, as long as we show the VA that Bob is using all of his income to pay for that assistance. So what we've done is we now have Bob paying Mary. We then file the application a little differently, and we're able to use the $2,718 total medical expense now. The VA still is going to subtract the 118 with their mathematical formula. But now we have $2,600 a month of medical deduction that the VA will use to offset Bob's income. So we take his $2,600 of monthly income, we subtract the $2,600 medical deduction, and we give now Bob a zero IVAP, income for VA purposes. We've now zeroed out his income, and the VA is going to do the same mathematical equation. They're going to take the benefit amount of $23.58. They're going to subtract the income, which is now zero, and they're going to now award Bob the full $2,358 a month, because you remember, any positive income gets subtracted from the benefit amount, so we have to get his benefit amount, or his income down to zero. We have to show the VA that he's bringing in $2,600 a month, but he's paying out $2,600 a month The VA is going to know that his daughter's providing the care. It's fully transparent. And they're going to allow the medical deduction of $2,600 to be subtracted against his income, giving Bob a zero IVAP or zero income for VA purposes, and award Bob the full $2,358. Now that Bob is receiving the $2,358 every month from the VA, he still has his $2,600 of monthly income. You add on that the $2,358 coming in aid and attendance. That makes Bob's new income $4,958 per month. You subtract the $410 that he's paying for his Medicare, bringing him to $4,548. You then subtract the $3,400 he can afford now to move into the assisted living community, and he still has a positive surplus of $1,148 every month. And that is life-changing for Bob, because before he simply didn't have enough income to afford the assisted living. So by calling us, we're able to offer ways and solutions, and with our experience, show Bob and Mary how they can qualify immediately, how to pass the income test, and get the full aid and attendance awarded to Bob, which is a benefit that he's earned. The second part of the third area of qualification is net worth and assets. Basically, the assets, we're talking about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, checking accounts, IRAs, annuities, savings, money market accounts, silver, gold, cryptocurrency, anything that's liquid. The VA will allow Bob to keep in his name up to $159,240. That's the current maximum asset limit for aid and attendance. The primary residence does not count. It's excluded. It's exempt from the formula. The value of the primary residence does not count. The only time the primary residence would count is if they were to sell the home and the proceeds of the sale of the home were then deposited into Bob's account. Then that would affect his asset equation. But currently, they will allow Bob to keep up to $159,240. The way that they do it is they're going to take the income, Bob's income, which was $2,600 a month, $31,000 annually. They're going to compare it to the cost of the assisted living community, which in this case is $40,800 annually at $3,400 a month. Bob has $180,000 in his bank account. So they're going to take the 180, they're going to add 31,000 to it, which gives Bob total assets of 211,000. Bob's allowed to subtract the cost of the assisted living community as a medical deduction, but only up to the amount of his income. So they will see that he has a $40,000 annual expense, but they will allow him to deduct 31,000 of that. So they'll take the 211,000 of assets, they'll subtract the 31,000 medical expense, which leaves Bob back to the 180,000 of total assets, which puts him over the $159,000 asset limit. So Bob goes ahead and transfers $25,000 out of his account and into Mary's account. And in 2018, the VA implemented a 3-year look-back period on the transfer or change of ownership of assets. What Bob didn't know is that because he did this not knowingly, to get himself below the $159,000, he transfers $25,000 into Mary's account as a gift, and the VA then asks Bob when he completes the application, in the last 3 years, have you transferred any assets out of your name? And he says, yes, I transferred $25,000 over to my daughter. The VA has a mathematical equation for this one too. What they're going to do currently, they use the dollar amount of $2,727. They divide that into the amount of the money that's been transferred in the last 3 years, in this case $25,000. And that determines that Bob has to wait 9 months before he's allowed to apply for aid and attendance. Well, at Senior Living Solutions, we don't agree with that necessarily. We don't penalize a veteran for being frugal. There are still legal, ethical, and moral solutions the family can implement in order to get below the 159,000 asset limit, but not trigger the 3-year look back period. We work with a team of VA accredited attorneys who specialize in the aid and attendance benefit. It's very important to plan properly if you have assets over 159,000. As I mentioned earlier, there are still legal, ethical, and moral solutions the family can implement that will not trigger a penalty period, will not trigger the 3-year look back period, and help the veteran or the spouse qualify immediately. So if you are above assets, above 159,000, give us a call. It's very important to make sure that it's done properly. The normal estate planning trusts that are set up and used for estate planning purposes no longer suffice for VA purposes. It's going to trigger a 3-year look back period, and it's going to trigger a penalty period if the family uses the routine and everyday estate planning transfers and gifting methods that has been done for many years. It has to be a very specific manner, and our VA accredited attorneys help us with that. If you have any questions on how to do that, let us know, and we'll be more than happy to sit down with you and explain exactly how it's done so that it doesn't trigger a penalty period. Of course, the primary residence is exempt, but if the veteran sells the home while he's receiving the benefit, if Bob sells his home and he's getting $2,358 a month in January, but in June he sells his home and he puts $189,000 into his bank account from the sale of his home, and the VA continues to pay $2,358 throughout the remainder of the year, will come the following January, the VA is going to ask for an update on medical expenses, income, and assets. And when Bob tells them now that he has $189,000 in his savings account from the sale of his home in June, they're going to say, "Whoa, what happened there?" And Bob's going to say, "Well, I sold my home in June." Well, the VA is going to stop the benefit at that point and then demand all of their money back from June on, $2,358 a month, for the amount that they paid Bob that they wouldn't have paid him had they known about the sale of the home. So although the primary residence is exempt when you apply, if you plan on selling, which many of them do, it can become a very important factor in your asset limit. So it's always best to deal with the primary residence with our VA accredited attorney prior to selling the home, so that when it sells, the proceeds can be handled in such a manner that it doesn't disqualify Bob from his future VA benefits. Again, Senior Living Solutions, we've been doing this for the last 17 years. We never turn a veteran family away. We have a little over $250 million in paid out claims. Everyone in our organization is either a veteran or a family member of a veteran, so we're very passionate about helping our veteran families qualify and then obtain this benefit. When you have the same conversation with the VA that you've had with us, the VA is never going to give you the remedy on how to qualify immediately. Okay? Every veteran family is entitled to a free phone consultation. We work nationwide, and we treat the veteran family as if they were our own. As I mentioned, everyone in our organization is either a veteran or a family member of a veteran. So we're very passionate about making sure that our veteran families qualify and obtain this benefit that they've earned. Remember, this is an earned benefit. It's not a benefit like Medicaid, a welfare type benefit. It's a benefit that our veterans have earned and our spouses have made sacrifices for. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. You can give us a call at 877-896-0181. We look forward to speaking with you. We want to thank all of the veterans for their service to our country and to their family members for their sacrifices as well. Senior Living Solutions here signing out. We want to thank you again for joining our broadcast. We look forward to speaking with you. You all have a good day. Thank you. Bye now.